So when you're thinking about those jurisdictions, I suppose one of the things that's unique about the EU environment versus UK Channel Islands is that you have a different framework, the AIFMD framework, and different service providers are required as a result. Right, so we've got a depository, maybe an AIFM that could be required. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Thomas?
Yeah, I mean,
challenges.
It's easy for us to get into the vernacular, but I mean, for sure. I mean, you mentioned the four-letter word, the AIFM, Alternative Investment Fund Manager. I mean, that's a role 20 years ago didn't exist, right? I mean, that came in with the European directive, which was a direct result from the global financial crisis of 2007, 8, 9. Really went live in 2013. And basically gave a regulated framework for a space within financial services, asset management that did not used to be regulated, right? So these types of private asset funds fall into this regulation and require either in-house, i.e. as part of a larger organization, this regulated function that is licensed, authorized by a local regulator like the CSSF in Luxembourg. I mentioned in-house service providers like Ocorian are so-called third-party AIFMs. So that means we can provide our regulatory umbrella. For example, the team that I'm managing in Luxembourg, 35 people specialized in various asset classes and topics of valuation, risk management, portfolio management, oversight over counterparties, really giving this framework of supervision and ultimately security and comfort to the investor who appreciates this safety network.
It's certainly a good thing for the investor. But I mean, first-time manager might find it a little I suppose cost-wise challenging to deal with. So, I mean, there's ways to avoid it. I guess one is to go outside of the EU, and in terms of where you domicile your fund. I guess another one is thresholds. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. By choosing to look at alternatives, you can avoid the costs. Now, I completely agree that it really does provide a strong service to the investors, but your investors need to be at a certain level to require that. If they're not there, if you're in an earlier stage of the journey as a fund manager and your investors don't actually need that, you can avoid the expense and you can avoid the time and you can get started in Jersey, Guernsey, or even the UK as a non-EU domicile now.
Yeah. And thresholds, Thomas, kind of key thing for any manager to understand, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the literally $1 million question, right? Or €1 million question, maybe rather for us. I mean, it's hard to draw a line in the sand on that one. But I mean, I think it's safe to say that below sort of a 75-100 million euro committed capital, it's probably going to be a little bit difficult, and because I mean you have the regulated functions that you alluded to. You have the AIFM, you have a central administrator, you have a depository function. If you want the fully authorized setup with the marketing capacity, right? Mm-hmm. And well, I mean those are all licensed entities that need to have a regulatory capital in place, that have to pay license fees to their regulators, and they need certain a number of really specialized staff that are also individually authorized. So those people don't come very cheaply. So there is just a base cost that needs to be covered. And if your asset levels are at a stage where that costs represent too much of a slice of the total return, the total expense ratio that your investors are willing to support. Well, then things might get difficult. But I think it's safe to say that from 100 million euros upwards, it's definitely a viable size. If you go towards 200 million, 250, I think it's already very comfortable. I think the statistics that I've come across not too long ago mentioned that the average alternative investment fund in Luxembourg is still slightly below the 100 million euro range. I mean, those are obviously more mature, that may be bigger. Those are funds that are just ramping up. But I mean, as a guideline, I think that's a good one to keep in mind.